Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. This is the prediction show. I'm Manu and he's Stefan Biankowski. And Stefan, how's it going?
Yeah, doing very well. Looking forward to the first weekend of the Bundesliga. In typical fashion, I'm going to miss most of it because I'm a groomsman at one of my good friends' weddings. It's just typical timing. I've been waiting all summer for the Bundesliga return, and then I'm going to end up Kaylee dancing and drinking whiskey all afternoon, I'm sure. Which isn't a bad excuse for missing it, but we'll obviously catch up on all the action, probably on Sunday. I'll have to record a lot of the games, but enough about me. We actually have something exciting to announce. If you haven't been on Twitter and you haven't seen us tweeting about it, which I understand if you're not these days, we have launched a fantasy football league for this coming season in a partnership with the DFL, and it's going to be a lot of fun, man. We've got some prizes. First place, who finishes the league top, will get a Bundesliga jersey, a team jersey of their choosing, of their size. Second place will get an official match ball, and third place will get one of those fun little mini balls. Bundesliga official merchandise, of course. And if you're interested in taking part, if you're interested in fantasy football, which I think is always a fun way to kind of keep interested in a league. If you might only be like a temporary or a casual fan of the league, fantasy football does help in that regard. Go into your podcast app right now, go into the show notes, and you will find a link to the league itself, and that should take you to the page. Probably ask you to download the Bundesliga fantasy football app, but you can either do that or you can jump online and do it. And of course, if you can't do that, or if the link isn't working, you can always find us on the fantasy page. Our league is called the official Gegenpressing Liga, so Liga, and the league code is 114713. So yeah, if you want to go looking for that, you should be able to find it. But of course, if none of these things take you to it, you can get us on social media, whatever else.
And I also want to mention that on the Substack, we have a thread where you can banter each other about this. About the league, and this is open not just for subscribers but everyone. Obviously I think you have to be what I would need to specify this, it's open for all subscribers whether you are paid or not. I think that is the proper way of putting it, Stefan. So yeah, please use this thread. Just be respectful, be nice. Banter is 100% allowed. If you are winning the league, let us know, especially Stefan and I, because I don't think either one of us is going to win. But we're going to have a little section, I think, every week as well, where we're going to discuss some of the up and down, the players trending up, the players trending down. So I think this will be fun. We never really had a proper space for a fantasy league on the show, and I think this is a really good way of doing it. And thank you for the DFL for their support in this. I think this is a really good way of interacting with the league as well. So yeah, enjoy it. Have fun. Stefan, may the better person win.
Yeah, we figured that since the predictions were such a farce last season, we'd also start a second competition between the two of us to see who could win that one as well.
Right, exactly. Well, this one at least other people can play and beat us. I finished second last year between the two of us, so there's that. All right, we have lots to discuss, so we should jump into it right after this break. This episode of the Gegenpressing podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. So yeah, Stefan, I realized that we committed a big podcasting sin ahead of this recording, and that neither one of us picked a match of the day. So, or let each other know what their respective match of the day is. So why don't you go ahead and pick a match of the day first, and I'll take a leftover.
Okay, well, I think there's maybe one obvious one. I'll go with Leverkusen versus Leipzig. But yeah, and then you can pick it.
That makes it really easy for me, because then I'm going to start with the Friday fixture, which is the opening game. And so I'm going to dive right into that one. So my match of the week is Bremen against Bayern Munich. This is maybe before there was Dortmund against Bayern and the creation of the fake Klassiker. This was it. This was the big game in German football in the 1990s when I grew up, because those two teams won a lot of titles, or had also a very distinct rivalry. Willy Lemke, of course, the sporting director at the time. Uli Hoeneß was still almighty at Bayern Munich, the counterpart. They had lots of fights on television. This was a soap opera. We have it now back for the Bundesliga for a second year in the running. Bremen against Bayern. And of course, this is also the first game for Harry Kane in the Bundesliga. His debut last Saturday, of course, went sideways in the worst possible way. First title already gone, Stefan. But I think that this week things are going to go a little bit better for him. I actually predict that he's going to score, and I think that Bayern Munich are going to win this game 2-0.
Yeah, I've actually gone for the exact same result. It's a peculiar kind of opening fixture, because it's a fixture in which Bremen haven't won in 31 competitive games. So, I think if the DFL were looking for a more one-sided contest, then, they'd struggle to find one beyond this. But look, this is there and waiting for Bremen to kind of cause an upset. Obviously we've spent most of the summer talking about the kind of circus around Bayern in the summer transfer window. Thomas Tuchel spent much of his press conference on Thursday trying to explain his way or avoid the kind of cul-de-sacs that he's kind of talked himself into over the window, whether it be the goalkeeping situation, number sixes, whether he has any number sixes in the team, whether Benjamin Pavard's sticking around, blah, blah, blah. It's just, there's a whole array of problems that seems to be kind of haunting this Bayern team. And you would imagine that the Tuchel, the team, are just desperate to kind of crack on and just get down with the football. But you can certainly make a case, and we talked about this in the top of the week when the main show, that, against Leipzig, they certainly did not look ready. So I think there's every opportunity that Bremen could cause Bayern a bit of a scare here. I think the fact that there's going to be so much intrigue and so much kind of pressure on Harry Kane, who's expected to start, to, hit the ground running, but standing across from him is Niklas Füllkrug, who could not be more experienced and more settled in this league. He is really Mr. Bundesliga when it comes to being a grizzled veteran goal scorer in German football. So it's almost entirely set up for Füllkrug to kind of steal the show here, and to kind of steal Harry Kane's lines. But I think that's maybe just a romantic in me. And I do think over the course of the 90 minutes, Bayern should be fine. So yeah, I've gone for a 2-0 win as well.
It's still going to be a really intriguing match to watch, I think. As you said, everything is set up for either a Harry Kane show or an absolute Bayern Munich disaster. And you know what? Either way, it will be fun. So yeah, enjoy the opening match. That's the Friday fixture. Stefan, the next game is your match of the week, Leverkusen against Leipzig. That's a great pick. I think this is going to be a game with fireworks. But what do you think here?
Yeah, I think it kind of speaks for itself. It's two of the kind of top 5, top 6 teams in the division. In our preview show, we spent a lot of time talking about whether Leverkusen have the capacity to break into the top 4, potentially even join the kind of contenders for title challengers, such as kind of being the impressive summer that they've had. There's a lot of goodwill towards Leverkusen at the moment, and this kind of fixture will be a real kind of baptism of fire for a lot of these kind of new players, because they're up against a Leipzig side who, recently crowned Super Cup champions. I know it's not a real competition, but as you pointed out in your newsletter this week, Dani Olmo was beaming from, had a grin from ear to ear after that match. Max Eberl was more than happy to stick a foot into Bayern in terms of how they've been behaving in the summer. So there's no doubt that Leipzig will be like full of morale. They'll be ready to kind of take on anyone at this moment in time. And it'll be up to Leverkusen to show from the very get-go that they're a serious club this summer, or this season rather. And I think it's going to be a really good match, to be perfectly honest with you. I think, there's not a huge amount of kind of injuries really for both teams. I mean, aside from like the kind of long-term ones, like, Patrick Schick, for example, at Leverkusen, we should see two really decent teams out. And to be honest with you, I've struggled to separate them. So I've actually ended up going for a 1-1 draw, because even though Leipzig actually, have looked really good against Bayern, I thought they did so by almost kind of reverting back to this kind of counter-attacking style, which might work against Leverkusen, but something tells me Leverkusen will probably show them more, respect, shall we say, than Bayern did, and they won't exactly try to impose themselves. And yeah, I don't know. I think both teams will kind of struggle to get the best of each other. So yeah, 1-1 draw for me.
I've got something similar here. I went for a 2-2 draw. I think there's goals in this game, but ultimately I don't think those two teams can be separated from one another. And I don't think that speaks against either one of those sides. I think these are two very, very good teams. I think if Leipzig might try to play the way they did against Bayern, I'm not sure that's going to help them, as you pointed out, rightfully so. So, 2-2 draw is my prediction here. Okay, so that's the two top games out of the way for both of us, the games to watch. Of course, there's many more. Let's go through it here. The next match is Wolfsburg against Heidenheim. This is the first of the two promoted sides playing their first game away from home at a team that we have talked a lot about this summer in Wolfsburg, and we both feel that they have done quite a lot of things right. I think, Stefan, this is going to be a perfect start for Wolfsburg, and I think they're going to win this game 3-0.
Yeah, I've also gone for a similar result. I've gone for a 2-0 win for Wolfsburg here. They looked quite impressive, to say the least, in their Pokal first round, which they won 6-0. And yeah, we talked, again, we went into kind of more depth on Wolfsburg and all these teams, by the way. So if we are flying through this episode, please do go back and listen to both preview shows if you're looking for a bit more depth on these clubs. But I do think, despite the fact that Wolfsburg have lost a lot of key players, they've brought in some really impressive ones. One in particular this week in Meyer, the Croatian number 10, who I think will be a really impressive player. And as we just outlined on the preview, on the second part of the league preview show, I do kind of worry for Heidenheim this season. So, I mean, if they were going to cause an upset, this would be a great one, because I think most people would put their money on Wolfsburg to win this one, including myself. So, let's see what happens. But yeah, I think this might be a comfortable win for Wolfsburg.
All right, up next, Hoffenheim against Sportclub Freiburg. What do you think here, Stefan?
I think it's going to be a really tricky one. This was a very hard one to kind of call, just because I think, Hoffenheim have been a decent team under Matarazzo. We talked about in the previous show how they've actually, I think they've been quite good in terms of the transfer window as well. In terms of, whether it's Grillitsch or Weghorst in particular, who could really kind of jump back into being a very impressive goal scorer in the Bundesliga without, a huge amount of effort, really. But I've got high hopes for Freiburg this season. I think they'll be again pushing for a top four. There's nothing to suggest to me that Christian Streich has lost a huge amount of talent in that team. And I think history kind of suggests that unless Freiburg get properly dismantled and Streich has to go back to square one, then more often than not they do improve season to season. So I think this will be a really tricky opening tie for them, but I'm going for a 2-1 win for Freiburg.
See, I did the exact opposite. I went for a 2-1 Hoffenheim win here. I feel like the home...
Well, it's
home
about time we came up with different predictions.
Yes, 100%. It had to happen. And I just sense that Hoffenheim are going to be really up for it this year under Pellegrino Matarazzo. And, they're at home. Home advantage can be a big one. And I just feel that although I think ultimately Freiburg will be all right, I think this is going to be maybe the first upset of this match day with Hoffenheim taking all 3 points here. So we'll see. It's good that we don't agree on this one, because otherwise people might accuse us of telling us the results ahead of time, which we absolutely do not. All right. So up next, Augsburg against Gladbach is up. I'm going to go first here for this one. I went for a 3-0 Gladbach win, because we did talk in the previous show about how we feel like Gladbach could be one of those teams to push into the top 9. I think that they've done a lot of things right. I think this is a team to really watch out for, and I think they're going to come up with a big statement win on match day 1, and I think they're going to dismantle Augsburg.
That's quite dismantling. I've also gone for Gladbach win. I think it'll be a lot closer. In a sense, I think I've gone for a 2-1 win. And actually, I found a great stat today. Actually, that Augsburg have only won their opening Bundesliga match of the season twice in their history. So they've obviously been in the Bundesliga 10 seasons, and they've only won. The stat I've got says maybe it's the last 10 seasons. I don't know, but They've won 1, drawn 1. No, sorry, they've won 0, drawn 1, and lost 9. Not that I think these kind of silly stats mean anything when it comes to 22 players walking onto a football pitch on any given day of the year. But I think what probably will play a part, as you mentioned, is just how good Gladbach have looked this summer. They absolutely trounced Bersenbruck in the Pokal 7-0. We talked in the previous show about how much we expect a lot more from Gladbach this season, particularly under Gerardo Siona, but also just the manner in which they've built a really impressive squad. They've replaced the players that left quite well, I think. And I think these kind of fixtures are exactly the kind of ones we're expecting Gladbach to push on and pick up 3 points, where maybe last season or the season before they really struggled.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. All right, up next is Stuttgart against Bochum, and per tradition, you are up first, Stefan.
So, I don't know if we're calling this a potential 6-pointer already, but maybe that's a bit harsh. I think, this could have easily actually been a kind of match of the week, the match of the match day, or game of the match day. I can't remember how we called it, but two teams who were fighting tooth and nail to avoid relegation last season, who should do better this year. I think Stuttgart in particular should do better. And I have picked them for like a very narrow win. I've gone for a 1-0 win because I think it's going to be a very, very tight match. I have kind of predicted Bochum to finish in that playoff spot, but I really should stress, and I'm doing as much as I can to kind of hedge my bets, that I do so with the asterisks alongside it that, if they finish there, I'll be within 1 or 2 points of maybe 3 or 4 other clubs. And there's every chance that Stuttgart could be one of those clubs if they don't kind of get their act together, as they did last season, but there's no guarantee that they'll kind of start this season as well as they finished last one. But yeah, we'll see what happens, but I think this will be a very, very tight match. I've gone for a 1-0 win for Stuttgart.
Yeah, I've gone for something really similar. I went for a 2-1 win for Stuttgart. And, like you, I need to stress that predicting the Bundesliga, especially in the relegation race, can be so very difficult. While we hadn't had the sort of title race like we had last year for many years, the relegation is usually very different. Especially the maybe not. We usually have one team that gets relegated quite quickly, right? But then we have anything between like 16th and 17th up to sometimes 12th and 11th even can be very, very tight. And I agree with you. This is a game that Stuttgart want to probably win right away, just to have those 3 points in the pocket over Bochum. Because when the final match day does come around, those 3 points can be extremely valuable. And as I said, I think that Stuttgart are going to win this game 2-1. I think they are going to face an enormous task in replacing Endo for this match, and I'm really curious to see how they're going to do it. So yeah, that's that. All right, up next, Dortmund against Köln. I went for an easy 3-0 win for Dortmund. I think Dortmund are there to prove a point. I think that they're really up for it. I think they were good in the Pokal. I've seen them, of course, in the United States, and they were firing out of all cylinders there. I think that this is a club on a mission, and I think they're going to start mission on day one, and they're going to win this game 3-0.
Yeah, I've gone for an almost identical result. Actually, I've gone for a 3-1 win, and yeah, I completely agree with you. Dortmund couldn't have had a better summer window. I actually did a kind of a newsletter on them recently talking about exactly that, and how, I'm not going to say the stars have aligned and try and hype them up to be title contenders or challengers or potential champions, because I know a lot of people do that every season. We've certainly been guilty of that in the past, but I think they've just kind of, instead of maybe causing a lot of kind of noise, I think they've actually been very composed. They've been very kind of settled, I guess the best word I can think of, this summer. And yeah, they picked up some really impressive signings. Terzic is continuing to kind of build something impressive there. I think there's still question marks over him as a head coach, which I guess my newsletter, largely the main thrust of it was to say the only thing that could maybe really let him down this summer would be whether Terzic kind of mismanages key points of that season. But yeah, when it comes to this fixture, I think Cologne, I think they're a decent mid-table side. They're a team who could get kind of dragged into the bottom half of the table, or not the bottom half, but bottom quarter of the table, shall we say? And yeah, I think this is quite a convenient opening tie for Dortmund, and I've gone for a 3-1 win.
So Dortmund starting off on the best footing. All right, that gets us into the Sunday fixtures, Stefan. The first one is Union Berlin against Mainz. What do you think here?
Again, I think this is probably going to be quite a tight one. I think it feels quite similar to the Stuttgart versus Bochum fixture in a sense, except maybe like a kind of top half version of it. I think Mainz continue to fly under the radar. They always do. And, I think it's kind of overlooked how actually quite impressive they were last season in the end. But of course, Union have looked really good as well. And, I think the fact that Union are still signing players to this very day, actually, they confirmed
to this very moment.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, they confirmed another one just before we started recording this podcast. It makes you wonder whether they actually have the most settled squad in the world. But, as we've talked about 100 times, they've got the sheer size of that squad probably means that Urs Fischer can probably put together a pretty solid 11. They look perfectly fine in their Pokal clash against Waldorf, which they won 4-0. And I think they probably should get the better of Mainz here. I've gone for a very narrow 1-0 win, which to me suggests that it could easily be a draw. Mainz could easily take points off this game, but I think on the balance of things, I've gone for a 1-0 win.
I went for something really similar. I went for a 2-1 win for Union Berlin. Also want to point out, one of our Substack readers just put in the thread, Kevin Volland is back in the Bundesliga. Union are looking pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of good players. I'm curious to see how many of the new players will play in this game, Stefan, because they've signed so many. I would love to see Kevin Volland back. on the weekend, whether it's from the start or coming off the bench. I hope Robin Gosens plays. This is a game that I will 100% watch because I'm really curious to see what they have done. Like you, unfortunately, on Saturday, I will be occupied. I have a bicycle race really early in the morning, 157 kilometers. So I will be recording the matches. Oh, actually, no, I don't have to record them. They're on DAZN now in Canada, so I can just back watch them, which is even easier. But I will definitely settle in on the Sunday matches on the couch. I will probably not do much moving on Sunday, to be honest with you, because of the bike race that I have on Saturday. But this will be one I'm watching. I'm really, really curious about this and what Union have been doing. And I think they're going to win this game 2-1. And maybe we'll see a Kevin Volland winner. Wouldn't be that something?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, that'd be quite something. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we're talking about that kind of final match day. I guess I have to kind of go for Frankfurt, don't I? Unless you've got something different to suggest.
Well, yeah, that's you. That is you to start your prediction. Frankfurt against Darmstadt. By the way, that's a derby. It's a Hessen derby.
Yeah, which I kind of want to suggest should be a good contest, but I can't look before it beyond Frankfurt here. It's a tricky one. I'm still not entirely made up on Frankfurt this season, to be perfectly honest with you. There's still talk of Kolomoani moving on. They've obviously lost a lot of players above and beyond him in midfield and defence in particular. And on top of that, a head coach who, with all the goodwill in the world, is almost entirely inexperienced at this level and will really have to prove himself. After some big names have been in that job recently, it's big personalities in particular, so there's a lot of change at Frankfurt, and that's before we even consider whether Kolomoani is going to stick around or not, which might look less and less likely now that Neymar's left PSG. But yeah, I've gone for 2-0 win over Darmstadt on this one, not because Frankfurt look convincing, but just because I think Darmstadt are going to really struggle this season. And I think Frankfurt on a bad day probably still have enough to beat Darmstadt.
Yeah, I went for a 3-1 win here. I'm with you. This could be Kolomoani's final game, now that I think of it. And you know what? I think Frankfurt needs to sell him because I don't think they're going to get that sort of money for him next year. Kolomoani is one bad Bundesliga season away from turning from a 100 million euro player to a 20 million euro player. You need to take that money. You really need to. So, yeah. I think this might be his last outing if they take that money. And then I'm really curious to see what Frankfurt are going to do with the window essentially just open for another 12 days, right? Which will make things really exciting for us because we work in that kind of field. But yeah, I think that for that game, Frankfurt will be fine and they're going to win it. All right, that leads us to our final section. Not much to talk about this week. Stefan, your fantasy team and my fantasy team. Who is going to go first, reveal what they have here? And I'm probably going to post mine later on Twitter. I be quite honest, ahead of this first match day, there wasn't a ton of creativity here, and I'm probably going to change it around quite a bit once I get a feel for it. But who of us should go first, revealing their starting 11 and their bench?
Oh God, the bench as well. That's a terrifying thought.
Thankfully, there's only 4 guys on it, so...
Yeah, I'll let you go first. Feel free.
All right. Okay, I went in goal with Gregor Kobel, so easy choice right there. In defense, I have Juranovic, Orban, and Ryerson. Then in midfield, Musiala, Olmo, Sabitzer, and Brandon Aronson as a kind of a wild card. And then in the attack, I went full-on big 3, Stefan, Haller, Kane, and Openda. Hopefully that's gonna work out. I got Harry Kane on a deal, unlike Bayern Munich. There was a deal on him because he's a new signing.
Yeah, I think I did as well. I think everyone in the world who's played this game probably picked up Kane this week.
I watched him, and then he's only gonna score 10 goals.
Yeah, or Füllkrug scores the goals.
Yeah, or Füllkrug scores the goals. And then on the bench, I put Václav Czerny. I thought he was really impressive for Wolfsburg in the Pokal. And then another Union Berlin defender, because I actually do think that Berlin, unlike some other clubs, can defend, and that's Diogo Leiche, or Leiche, I think it's pronounced. And then Kilian Sidilia from Freiburg, who I was really impressed with. And then my backup goalkeeper, and depending on how things go, he might actually be soon a number one, is Matic Kovar, the new Leverkusen goalkeeper, who I think is the signing that could take the starting role from Radetzky. So there we go. That's my team.
So yeah, impressive. I've gone for Muller, that's the Freiburg goalkeeper in goals. I've got Raum, Weiser, and Sosa as my defenders. I've got Patrick Wimmer, I've got Lindstrom, Julian Brandt, Jonas Hoffmann as my midfielders, Daniel Malin, Harry Kane, and then I've picked up Gregoritsch, the Freiburg forward, as my third striker. So I mean, if I had to pick one who I think will probably do well this weekend, it's probably between Wimmer and Lindstrom, because they're both playing, the really promoted teams, and they could rack up a decent amount of goals there. So that'd probably be my shout. And then on the bench, there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to this, because I did that classic fantasy football thing where I picked my start 11 and I just let it auto pick the bench to see if I had enough money to fill it. So I've got Dimitros Limnos, the Cologne midfielder, Mohamed Simakan, Leipzig defender, who admittedly is a decent, who could be a decent,
It's good. He is good in the Super
exactly. Cup. Hoffenheim defender Kevin Vogt, and Freiburg, got two Freiburg goalkeepers, oddly enough. Gladbach goalkeeper Moritz Nicolas on my bench. So
the only thing that you need to watch out, I think Freiburg might start with Alto Bolo. Yeah, and goal, I think they might give Alto Bolo the number one.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on. I always try for, I'm terrible at fantasy because I always forget to change my lineups. But when I know that one of my goalkeepers isn't always starting, and Kobel is a great example for that, because he didn't start every game last year, right? Because of his injuries. I pick a goalkeeper from another club that could be playing and still win. So that's my gamble with Kova from Leverkusen. I'm probably overthinking this, but whatever.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then I think from this match day on, we're going to try, you kind of did it already, some players to keep an eye on. And I think you showed a big team playing against a lower team where they can rack up points is probably always a good thing to keep an eye on. So yeah, here we go. Well, good luck everyone who is playing fantasy football. I also want to add, this show as always is brought to you in association with Get German Football News. As a partnership that we had since last year. Check out their site, please. Get German Football News is a fantastic resource on German football in English. So check that out. I also want to thank the DFL for their cooperation with the Fantasy Bundesliga. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And then lastly, this show, as always, is brought to you by Bet Online. Stefan, may the games begin. Enjoy match day 1. The Bundesliga is back. Have a happy weekend. Auf Wiedersehen.
In Sicht.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.